Hey guys, what's up? So in this video, we're going to be continuing from where we stopped. We have built our application to the point where it has most of the functionality that it needs, and now we're going to go ahead and style it up as well as to allow our media files to appear. Now if you have to recall, we have images attached to each of these posts. Now we're going to start by configuring our settings so that we allow these photos to actually be displayed on our front end. So what I'm going to do is to go to our settings.py. So I'm going to close some of the files we have here, and after closing them, I'll head over to our blog project, and then in our settings.py, now I'm going to add extra settings. Now these are going to be for our media. So the media settings are going to allow us to dictate how we want our media files to be shown on our front end or in our templates. Now the first thing I'm going to set is going to be our media root, and the media root is simply that directory from which Django will look for our media files. Now I'm going to come right here and I'll specify this to be best.dar and then slash. That will be our media directory within our root project folder. So the first thing I'm going to do, so what we've been having is an empty media folder for now, and if you haven't created it, please go ahead and create it. But when we uploaded our photos for the previous videos, they were actually stored within our thumbnails folder. Now what we want to do is to specify that our media root is our media folder. For currently we are actually having this as our photos. So let's say if we configured our server to display our photos for each of the posts we have here, it's going to pick them from our thumbnails, which we don't want. We want all our photos to be got from our media root. So we're going to go ahead and basically configure this. Now I'm going to basically go ahead and configure this, because even on our models, when you go to our posts, when you go to our models of our posts, we have our default image being default.jpg. Now the first thing I'm going to do is to provide our default PNG file within our media directory. Now I'll come on our file system, and on my file system I'm going to go to my pictures directory, and what I have to do is to basically copy my default PNG file and then copy it within our media folder. So each of the photos we did not specify an image for is actually going to have this as its default image. So I'll basically put it in our media folder just like that, and then I'm going to close this. So after closing it, I'm just simply going to come right here, and I'm going to come and basically set up our images. So Django provides a way of us to be able to access our uploaded files during development. Now I'm going to go ahead and search for that. So I'm going to say static files in Django, and this is going to take us to our documentation. So right here we're going to have how to handle static files during development, and this is basically how we handle them. But what we're looking for in this case is how to handle our media files that are uploaded by a user during development. So right now we've configured our media root, and that's where all our images will be looked for. But then we also need to configure our media URL, which is simply a URL on which all these are going to be good. So in this case, I'm going to come and say this is going to be our /media. So all of our images will be got from /media. I'm going to go ahead and save, hoping we have no errors. Our server is still running. And now the first thing I'll have to do is to basically allow Django to locate these on our file system during development. So that will happen within our project level urls.py. Now I'll head over to those urls.py, and then I'll go ahead and basically add the following settings. So these settings allow Django to basically be able to pick all our files from our media URL as well as our document root. I'm going to go ahead and set this up. So I'll begin by importing settings from Django, which is just a variable that's going to allow us to access our settings. Now just come right here and say from Django.conf, and in this case we shall import our settings. And right after importing that, then we're going to go ahead and basically copy this setting right here. So I'm just going to come, we actually also need to import our static. So I'll just come and say from Django.conf.static. It's actually going to be .conf.urls.static. We're going to go ahead and import our static. And right after having this static function, now we're going to just simply add this onto our URL patterns. So this static function basically takes in a prefix of the URL that's going to be for our static files. And in this case, I'll just come right here and say that we're going to have our static files, and then we're going to take in a URL, and in this case our URL is going to be for our media files. So I'll just simply come here, and using our settings variable, we are going to be able to access our media URL that we specified in our settings. So just going to call it our media URL, and then I'll also add our document root. So in this case, our document root is going to be our settings media root, just like we set it up right in here. So I'll simply come right here, and all I have to do is to say settings and then dot media root. And right after doing this, I'm actually going to correct this. I'm going to go ahead and save. So our server has restarted. Now when I go back to our web browser right here at our localhost 8000, I'm going to refresh. Seems like most of our files are not showing, so let me actually see what's happening. So we actually don't have the images displayed because we haven't had any images displayed within our template. Now head over to our index.html template right here, and then I'll create our img tag. So this img tag is going to have our images, and these images are actually going to have their sources stored within our database. So I'll provide it within our source attribute, and right here I'll just simply come and say, in this case we're going to have post. So I'll go to our models right here within our posts, and within our models here, what we actually have is this thumbnail. So I'm just going to come right here and say post dot thumbnail, and in this case we need the URL. So I'll provide the URL, and then I'll provide the out as the thumbnail in case the thumbnail does not exist. So I'll head over here and save this. So after saving this, when we go back to our web page and refresh, we now see that our photos are actually being shown. So for some of the photos we are having are not actually being shown. That's because they are not found. So if I were to open our server right here, it can be able to get thumbnails/land png. So what I'm going to do is to actually move our thumbnails folder into our media root, and then we shall be able to track those files. I'm going to simply move this within our media folder, and when I save, I'm going to restart our server. So I'll stop it with Ctrl and C, and then run it again. And when we refresh, we now see that all our photos are being displayed. Now let's go ahead and style this up so that it can look more appealing. So I'll head over to our CSS. Our CSS is actually located within our posts app. So I'm simply going to come within our posts app, and then within our static files and CSS, I'm going to style up our image. So I'm going to give each of the images a class. Just give it a class we shall use for styling with CSS, and this is going to be a class of image. Now I'm going to come right here within our main.css, and then I'll go ahead and style each of the images. So here we shall have our image as, let's say, having a width of, let's say, 400 pixels, and let's say a height of 200 pixels. Now when I save this, I'm going to head over here and refresh, and right now we see that our styles are actually working perfect. So right now our styles are actually working. So right now we have been able to display our images. Now let's go ahead and actually look at how we can make this more organized. So I'm simply going to come right here and look into our posts in our index.html. So what we have here is our post div. Now this post div is having all our post components. Sorry for that. Now this post content also actually has our post content. So I'll give this a class of post content, and then I'll simply come right here and let's say I'll give this a class of, it already has a class of link, so I'll save. Now I'm going to go to the CSS and let's say give our post content, So in this case, I'm going to give it our post content, and when I give it our post content here, we're going to have, let's say, a margin of top. So I'll say margin top, and let's say it's going to be 20 pixels. So when I save and refresh, now see it has some margin top of 20 pixels. Another interesting thing I can do is to make this of display flex, but I'm going to do that, or actually remove this list of posts. So I'm simply going to go in our index.html, and I'll remove this list of posts. And another thing I'll do is to basically wrap each of our posts, or the for loop for our posts, inside our post div, so that we actually have some styling. So I'll just come right here and then wrap each of everything that's within our for loop here, within our template, and then I'm going to create a div which I'm going to call posts, and this is actually going to have each of our posts within our for loop. So I'll simply come and style this. So what I'm going to do is to actually make it centered. So I'll just come and say dot posts, and then I'm going to give this a width of, let's say, 60% of the entire screen, and then I'll give it a margin of auto. So when I save and refresh, we now have all of our posts basically rendered right here. Now we have some styling right now, and our page kind of looks better than how it was. Now I'm also going to go ahead and style our pagination div right here. So our pagination div right here has a width of 30. So let's actually increase it to 60, and then you also give it a margin of auto. So when I save and refresh, we now have this kind of page, and we can even give it a background. So I'm just going to give it a background, or let me not give it a background, but let me go ahead and style it. So I'm just simply going to give it a padding of 20%, and actually 20 pixels, and then when I refresh, it's actually having this. We can also go ahead and make our header fixed, so that we don't have to actually do the whole work of scrolling without our header. So I head over to our header right here, and then I'll give it a top of 0, and then let's say I'll give it a left of 0, and then I'll give it a position of fixed, and a width of 100%, because we want it to fit our entire screen. So when I refresh, right now we see that we can be able to scroll, and this is working, but then our posts div is actually below what we have. So to fix this, what I'm going to actually do is to come and make it be having a margin top, so that it can actually come down. So to do that, I'm simply going to come within here, and then I'll style our posts. So let's say here we've specified our margin to be 60%. I'm just going to come and give a margin of top, and in this case our margin of top is going to be, let's say, 100 pixels. Hope that works. So when I save and refresh, right now we see that our posts are actually working. So this is beautiful. So let's say if we went to our next page right here, we can actually see that our posts are actually being shown. When you go to the next page, you can actually see that we are on our final page. Stuff is working the way we want it. Now when you go to our detail right here, we can actually do the same thing. So what I'm going to do is to head over to our post detail page, and that's within our template. So I'm going to go to our post detail, and then I'll have to basically make this be at the top. So I'm just going to create a container, and I'm just simply going to come here and say container, and then I'll press tab. So within our container, we're going to have it have a margin of top. So I'll just simply come right here and then say dot container, and then here we're just simply going to have a margin top of 100 pixels. So when I save, I'm going to refresh, and now we have our post title and then the sample content. So when you go ahead and update, we actually have this being taking us to where we have to log in. So actually this is also so near the top. So let's go ahead and fix it. So when I go to our login HTML, that's actually going to be login. So we actually have our form right here, but we're going to put this in a div. So let me actually give this also a container in itself. When we come back right here, have our login page. So I think that's what we also need for the sign up page. I'm just going to come and do the same thing for our sign up page. So I'll just come here and then remove our form and give it a container. And when I press this, when we go to our sign up, we actually have our page also. So let me try to log in. So I need to log in with our user, Paul Heyman, and then provide our password. When I log in, right now we can be able to access our posts. So when you navigate to all our pages, for example, for updating, and it seems like that is also messed up, so I'm going to simply also give it a container. And that will work for now. So when I refresh, we actually have it working the way we want it. So when we basically submit, we now have our posts working, and now our blog is working successfully. This video has shown you how we can be able to style up our application. Now we're also going to look at how we can take this application to Heroku, which is a platform as a service tool that can allow us to share this application via the internet. Thank you for watching, guys, and see you in the next video. Bye.